And I was like, man, this is ridiculous. At any rate, it was $500 fines per day, criminal penalties, $10,000 fine, and time in prison, and just insane stuff for this. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Hi, y'all. I've been out in the other shed working. Jess hadn't been in quite some time, and that's kind of the way it's all scheduled for us. She comes in when she can, and she can't. So I've been doing a lot more work because Blue Ridge Mama, she's babysitting tonight. She's been busy. Kids have been busy. Tournaments. So that's when I got to get in there and do some work. But tell you what, I've got some really good sales. Turner's doing some work over there, you know. Cut down the tree branches, and now he's got to drag them all back there. Any rate, a lot of good sales. I'm still on this positive note, and I'm super happy with some more good news, some stuff we've been talking about for a while that I think has always been a threat, the biggest threat to reselling and the way we do it. And I want to talk about that today and a little bit about the government as well, but we got some great sales and a bunch of them, so we're gonna have to move quick. And I'm in a nice warm shed. It's a little cold out today. You know what? I haven't turned the light on back here yet either. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Put that light on, and then we're gonna grab the first item. I'm gonna pick quick, talk quick today. Hopefully get in the topics that I want to get in. The first one should be right there. There you go. Speaking of the government, there's Thomas Jefferson paperweight. A lot of times those, you know, kind of touristy places, this is probably from Monticello, aren't always the best place. You know, those kind of things don't always sell well. But I picked this up for $1 somewhere. It sold for $27.50, which kind of shocked me, but I'll take it, plus shipping. I just stopped to get my computer on the right page, and we got 2 more sales in the last 5 minutes, so things are rolling for us, which is good news. What the heck just happened? The whole thing's broken. I need a new bungee. Wonder how that happened. That is really, really odd, y'all. Anyway, I won't bore you with it. Unless it falls off. Oh well. I wonder if Turner was in here or something. He would tell me. He's always honest. This is a little ashtray that's sold. You know I love ashtrays. And this one, oh man, I almost broke that light. This is a little drip glaze ashtray that I picked up at that one sale a couple weeks ago on the Commonwealth Picker channel. And that looks like whole. It might be. It doesn't say whole though. That one sold for $18.95 plus shipping. There are 3 viewer sales today, and they're all kind of at the beginning of this one. So I'll read this one and then 2 more here in the next 5 or 6 sales. And then we're going to get into the topic, which I am really passionate about. I have been for a long time, talking about how legislation and regulation can really pull down what we've been used to for a long time. I've talked about these topics before. There's a victory, at least a personal one, that I want to talk about with reporting and different stuff like that. I'm going to get into that and then kind of pull up those old things that we used to talk about. And hopefully that stuff's being put to bed. And it sounds like it is to me. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll get into it in a minute. Let me read this thank you here. This one went to Sandra. And you've bought from us before. We really do appreciate the support. Saw this pickup on the Picker video on the Commonwealth Picker channel. Paused and immediately went to your store. Love this so much. Just recently purchased a purse from you. Love that as well. Thank you, Kevin. Sandra, thank you. And you did get it with a 5% offer as well. So I think we had it listed for 20 bucks. So thank you. That actually turned out to be a great sale. It's only been 2-3 weeks max, not even 2.5 weeks since that sale, and we've sold over half of that stuff. There's even more that sold from that sale. We just brought it home, got it up, got it listed, and it sold super quick. That was the sale, if you remember, that the asking price for a big giant pile of stuff was 30 bucks. I ended up paying him 40 because I knew the guy. He used to play ball with my brother. It's a Pottery Barn Mickey. I sold this once before, y'all. Today has two items that I sold before, and I'm now selling again. This one was canceled, I believe, and the other one was a return that I've sold now again. So that happens from time to time. Pottery Barn Mickey little mini backpack. And that was sold for $27.50, I think is what it sold for. I paid $1. So that's a good one. I can't find it. There it is, $27 plus shipping. Turner's still down there working. I see some puppies. Now this one has been, it's a Commodore. Can't remember the number on it. Has been around for a couple of years. listed for over a year. And it's been on 30% off for a while, and it finally sold, which is a great sign. And it's missing a key right here. I want to see the number on this one. Hold on, my heater came back on too. It's a Commodore 64. It sold on clearance for $104. You know, there's a pair of pants in there I should have grabbed too, and I'm in a hurry. I had to take a break for a second. Tim over the years is running for the first time ever over on the DibDit network, running sudden death auctions, and I wanted to see how it was going. And while I was doing that, I was walking around with my phone, and I decided to look through this bin. Normally we put this stuff with like the camo, because that's where I bought it, and I found that other pair of pants out here. I don't even have to go dig through that camo bin in there, because it's not in there. Here's those dry fire pants. $114. We've sold 2 of them now. That was insane sale. We pulled, man, we had to make like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I went back again the next day, and there was still stuff to make money on. It's a crazy sale, plus shipping. All right, I was looking up here for the next one. It's got to be inside, and I already went inside. I'm not going to go back inside. This is hanging in a closet, so I'm just going to show it to you. My wife and Jess both sometimes will take clothing to different places and list it somewhere else. Hoping that's where this is. Elvis Presley Day t-shirt. And it was single stitch, sold for $17.95 plus shipping. And it sold super quick, which is probably why it's not in here yet, because I usually don't take pictures of clothing. Every once in a while I do. Hats, I like to take pictures of hats. At any rate, this one went to Jonathan. This is our buddy, I think. Let me look here. Of course it is. I should have bought this from you when we were at the Browns, the flea market down in Florida. I really appreciate you guys and the community you've built on DibDit. I plan on giving this away on DibDit Threads. So that's the April 3rd show, which this should come out, I guess, right before. I don't know. I get confused. Dates confuse me, and I'm always a day or 2 or 3 ahead with these videos. So hopefully it makes it here before the raid train. P.S. Sorry for the thumbnail on my last video. All in fun. I didn't actually see your last video. It's Pick in Paradise. You should go check out his YouTube channel. Great seller over on DibDit. Great guy. His wife seems wonderful as well, which I don't think we met her that day, but I've seen her on the shows. It's a single stitch Elvis shirt. I actually bought this off somebody who recognized me out there, and I'm like, that's a really cool shirt, but I'm not paying $10 for it because there's not enough margin. And he's like, you can have it for $5. I'm like, sweet. So I bought that shirt for $5, sold for $17.95 plus shipping to Jonathan. So that is really cool. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to do one more. It's another ashtray. I saved some good ones for the end of the video. A lot of times I'll throw the cool ones out in front. There's some awesome sales here towards the end too. But we've got to get into this topic a little bit. I'm going to pick one more item. It's the last viewer sale of the day, and we still have tons more to pick. But I want to talk about this topic. I waited to the very last minute to do something because I just thought for sure this thing cannot fly, and it's one of the many issues I've talked about over the years with the government interference, regulation, all those different things that I don't like, that scares me the most about reselling. I think people are always going to buy and always going to sell and always look for a good deal, which means that reselling is fairly protected. There are certain things that can really hamper that. If you live in Europe, for instance, you know that there are some difficulties, or try to sell to Europe these days with these VAT taxes and with all these different requirements and all kinds of stuff. It's just a giant pain in the butt. I know, I've talked to people at eBay that they want to have a worldwide market for our sellers, and it is just one hurdle after another. This is a minor one, but I feel like it's a victory amongst quite a few, I think, that are coming that are helpful to us instead of hurtful to us. This one should be here. Ashtrays are I normally put ashtrays up in the little ashtray bin up there, but occasionally I'll put some down here. This is a Hazel Atlas ashtray. I think I had it listed forever and it didn't say. It did sell on 30% off, I think. $17.46 for that blue Hazel Atlas ashtray. 2 ashtrays in the same day. You know, that makes me happy. I know a lot of people are like, well, why don't you get that thing fixed? Because I never think about it. So I got to squat down here for all these. We'll get it. I think I'm going to get a whole new one because this is an old connector and I got to get an adapter. And I'm like, I'm just going to get something bigger and better for up there. And then I just delay and wait, you know. Procrastinate. I put the pro in procrastinating. Anyway, Kevin, I have watched all your videos and love to see unique finds that you purchase. I have purchased from you a few times on eBay and on DibDit. I would love to see more Tupperware and Pyrex bowls dishes in your shop. Take care of your amazing family, precious dogs. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Jill, very, very much. And I do have, I tell you what did I have? I had some Pyrex somewhere. Oh, here we go. I think I have these listed for too much, I think. I do have that. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I've only ever had one thermal printer. You also know that I've been searching for another thermal printer because I need one. And I'm happy to say that this video is sponsored by Mulligan. All right, here it is. Got it all unboxed. Of course, it has the little thing where you put all those in. I might use mine that's already set up. We'll see. This is the Mulligan. It looks cool, which you know is important for the aesthetic here in the cabin. And it is, of course, a Bluetooth printer. And for those of you out there who have not made a leap to a thermal printer, I can tell you right now, there is no better decision I ever made, and maybe you can check out the Mulligan. And here are the specs on this one. Of course, it is a thermal printer. It does have USB and Bluetooth, and I'm looking for printing life right here. There you go, and you got resolution right there as well, and max printing speed. And I forgot to say, it's not just for your thermal printing needs. You can also print off your stickers and your seals and everything else. Different sizes, of course, and here are those labels. Let's take it out and see what this thing looks like. Oh, I'm gonna have to unwrap it. All right, let's put this thing together and give it a whirl. All right, y'all, it is time to print our first load using this Mulligan printer. Here it is, the first one ever. We're rolling right along, and we're gonna put labels on all of these right here. I like it. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it looks.
I like the way it feels.
One thing I've always had trouble with thermal printers is it jamming up. Check this out. All right. They say that you could take this out here and you can jam it. You can crinkle it all up and mess it all up and then put it back in here and it won't jam up. So we're going to give it a shot. I got this one pretty good. So if it can do this one, I believe it. 0.01% jam rate. Let's see if it works. Look at that. Sweet. The app offers over 1,000 free editable templates and a free QR code service. I'm going to put the thank you stickers in every package. Or you could even use them as sealing stickers. And what Reagan wants is really to have QR code stickers on demand that she can put everywhere to get people to go to CommonwealthPicker.com. And she wants to be able to use Bluetooth from her phone right to the printer. She usually puts these stickers on just like this, but if she can get this one on and print it on demand, you gotta check this out right here, CommonwealthPicker.com. There you go. You can find everything you need. So if you're looking for a thermal printer, and if you're not, you should be, this is a versatile, dependable, and affordable thermal printer. Go check out Mulligan. There'll be a link in the description below. All right, I'm just going to warn you, whenever I talk about these topics, I just get on my soapbox and I get going. And then people start reading politics into it, and then everybody gets all upset. So I'm just going to do the best I can with it. So this one right here, the BOI reporting, this does not apply to all resellers. However, this kind of stuff can. It doesn't apply to all resellers because it really applies to corporations, which strangely enough I am, and many resellers are. There's tax advantages to it. There's all kinds of different stuff. I probably would not be if all I was doing was teaching and reselling. So I'm not saying people need to do S-Corps and all that. But we've got, growing, Dibbed It, and we've got social media, and we've got reselling, and we've got all kinds of stuff. So I'm just going to read this off my phone so I don't have to squat down. I'm actually going to hold my phone. FinCEN removes beneficial ownership reporting requirements for U.S. companies and U.S. persons, sets new deadlines for foreign companies. And I'm going to read through this, but if you don't know what this is, this was a requirement put in place a couple years back with the deadlines, and the deadlines kept changing over and over and over again because it would go to one court and they'd be like, no, this is unconstitutional. Go to another court, you can't require that. Yes, you can require that. It flip-flopped 7 different times, this FinCEN and whatever. And this is why I think I can get away with talking about it, because I don't think this is a partisan issue, so to speak. Although in some ways it is. And some of the other issues that I'm going to talk about in a second after we pick some more stuff, once we get through this one, they're bipartisan issues and problems. Each side of the political aisle has different, different priorities, and they do different things. And sometimes those different priorities lead them to the same legislation, and that's pretty dangerous sometimes for some of us. And that's the case that's happened in some of these things that we're going to talk about briefly, because I've talked about them before, like the Shop Safe Act, which didn't pass, thank goodness. Oh, there was one part of it that I liked. The Informed Consumer Act, which was a disaster and could have had terrible consequences that were leading to Schedule A lawsuits, and that craziness that was going on, that looks like it's slowed. And if you think I'm picking on one side, I can promise you I can pull out politicians from both sides that were on the wrong sides of these issues. But let's get back to the BOI reporting for those of you who were an LLC. And we talked about this on Trash to Cash podcast. You know, a lot of people, when I talked about this before, they're like, oh, it's no big deal. You just got to go on here and it takes a few minutes and whatever. All of this stuff is just a little bit of a hurdle. But with all of those things comes a gotcha. And this particular thing said that you had to go report for your LLC, anybody that was, had to fill out all this information, then anybody that was making 25% or more in the company, you had to go list all this stuff. And then it's, an annual task if it changes and all those things. It's not that big of a burden. However, whenever you do that, it adds, I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. It adds opportunities for fraudsters, for scammers. Dave told this story on the Trash to Cash podcast where he went to go fill this thing out. And the first things that pop up when you go to do this, sponsored. And he clicked on one of them, filled out the information, and realized it was not even the right place. So people are out there giving their information, their financial information, their personal information to the wrong place. And I'm not saying, you should be diligent, and of course you shouldn't be doing that stuff. However, it opens it up to that. I'll give you another example. Plus, this is duplicate information. I used to hate that as a teacher. When parents would come in every single year and I had to make them fill out, they're like, I just filled this thing out. Sometimes it was like, I just filled this out in 5 different classes. It's like, what is going on? You already have this information. And that's the case with this information. The IRS has this information, not all of it, but most of it. And the states have it. When you're an LLC or a corporation, you got to file with the Corporation Commission. You got to do it every year. And this is what I mean by opening it up to scams and frauds with new people to LLCs like me. I had to scratch my head and like, what in the world is all this stuff? And so you send your check off to register with them, $75 or something like that. And then I kept getting letters in the mail that, said I owed this or I owed that or I owed that. And then it was more. It's like $139. And then you read the fine print. It's like, we'll file it for you and we'll do whatever. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I already paid this stupid thing. And it kept coming. And I've had 4 different letters now come to me after I paid the thing from outside groups that are trying to either scam me or to make money off of something that took 5 seconds with a stamp. I promise you I'm going to actually read what was put out by the government here. But I'm going to pick one item, then get back to the topic and keep doing that. These are some pretty cool vintage jeans right here with the tag. There was none listed out there like it, but I'm like, I'm still buying this for $1. Gonna absolutely have to. Check this out. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Somebody customized this with MLK on it. I have a dream. How awesome is that? So I had to buy it, and it didn't sell forever, but it sold for about, let's see, I can't remember the exact number, 30% off, but around $17.50 plus shipping. So for those of you who don't know, this is part of the Corporate Transparency Act that was signed, I don't even know when, a few years back, which was just ridiculous. I was ticked off about it then, and I knew it would have very little effect on me, but I mean, they're attaching things like for reporting information that they already know to a different location, with a couple minor exceptions, in order to fight against fraud and fight against money laundering and fight against things coming into this country, and that'll be my main point in a minute. That shouldn't be coming into the country. That they were putting burdens on companies that are here in the country. And I was like, man, this is ridiculous. At any rate, it was $500 fines per day, criminal penalties, $10,000 fine, and time in prison, and just insane stuff for this. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So they've changed it. Well, they haven't changed it. They've just said, we're not going to enforce this, except for on this segment of corporations. Now, keep in mind here, what I'm reading is something that came out immediate release March 21st. This was the day I had set a reminder in my phone. This was the day that the reporting was supposed to be done. Now, they had put out kind of guidelines earlier on in March that kind of led people to think, all right, this is where they're going with this. Consistent with the U.S. Department of Treasury's March 2nd announcement, the Financial Crimes Enforcement, it's FinCEN, is issuing an interim final rule, that removes the requirement for U.S. companies and U.S. persons to report beneficial ownership information, BOI, to FinCEN under the Corporate Transparency Act. In the interim final rule, FinCEN revises the definition of reporting company in its implementing regulations to mean only those entities that are formed under the law of a foreign country. Okay, which is what I mean by different political organizations, different parties have different priorities. And in this case, what happened with that earlier act that I was talking about, not the Shop Safe Act, but the Informed Consumer Act, is that those things were designed to keep fraudsters, to keep counterfeiters, to keep all those things out of the country. Because most of that stuff that we were getting in trouble for, with these Schedule A lawsuits that were hampering so many, or scaring so many resellers, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've been paying attention, you've been a reseller for the last few years. These things were big dollar stuff in these lawsuits, and it's like you're getting served with an email and all this nonsense, which shouldn't even be constitutional anyways. And it was going to these courts, and these courts were doing things like what I just described, and people were unknowingly having things show up in their email, and they didn't even know it did, and then they'd get a notice later that they've been essentially default sued in a lawsuit for one listing that some company deemed to be counterfeit, really without any proof whatsoever. And all of that stuff should not be allowed. And then sites like eBay were being forced to send out these Veros and forced to kick people off their site as a seller. And all of this came from bad legislation that was trying to, in my opinion, it wasn't trying to, you hear the dog out there barking, was trying to keep counterfeiters from sending stuff into the United States. In reality, in my opinion, what it was designed to do, and I could be wrong, I don't think I am, is to give protection to these big corporations. Because let's face it, a lot of these corporations, they don't, I get a corporation protecting their brand and protecting their trademark and all that. But really, what a lot of them were using the legislation for was to scare people from selling their legitimate products on the secondary market because it's a drag on their retail prices. And so that was a big issue. Boy, I'm going all over the place. I told you I'd rant today. I had to go back here and look out the window. The dogs are barking at a bunch of deer. At any rate, you could call it unintended consequences if you want. I believe that it was intended consequences because let's face it, people in sheds in their backyard, they're not sending checks to politicians. Big corporations are doing it, and they're saying, we're having all these problems with counterfeits and whatever. Fine. Deal with the source of the problem. Don't put the burden on somebody who may have, and I mean may have, because sometimes they haven't done anything wrong. And if you've been reselling a long time, you'll have a company come and say, that's not they send you a Vero or something. It's like, what are you talking about? I bought it from your store. Are you selling fakes? And they were using it to scare people from selling their products. So back to the BOI thing, it's ripe for fraudsters. It's ripe to take advantage of people. It's duplicating information, adding a hurdle that is unnecessary. This is a minor victory, in my opinion. The biggest victory is the fact that I really have seen these Schedule A lawsuits go way, way down. Well, I haven't seen them go down. I used to get emails all the time from people, from different, this company sued me this, and I have heard very little of that. It was one of the major things that I actually talked, when I was fortunate enough to talk to the eBay folks, that was top on my priority list. I remember I told people that was one of the topics I talked about. I'm like, what are you talking to them about that for? Who cares about that? And well, everybody should care about it. The reason I was talking to them about that is because I was trying to find places where they could come out in support of eBay sellers, because the perception at the time is they could care less. And I'm like, this is in your interest. It is in our interest. It's something that you guys could do to show some support for us folks out here making you money. Crocs. These are little baby Crocs. They sold at 30% off for $11.87. plus shipping. You may remember that video I did just a couple days ago where it's talking about, you know, we can complain all you want, but you got to take some kind of action that may help, or you got to just live with it. And so I was trying to find things that I could actually do that would be helpful. And that was one of the paths. There's been some other ones. I actually went with the Informed Consumer Act, and I'm not going to sit here and take credit for stuff that I have no idea. But I can tell you right now, I wouldn't say I'm friends. I'm an acquaintance with well, he's not a congressman anymore, but he was at the time, and I was able to talk to his aide about the Informed Consumer Act and how it was leading down this lane to these Schedule A lawsuits and the issues that were going on that I was getting. All of you out there who sent me that information, who sent me the actual documents and the court cases, I gave it all to them. And I don't know, I'm hoping that those things, we talked to the major lawyers who were writing in these professors at these law schools, and they were sending letters to people who were having these lawsuits against them, and then they were turning around and sending them to the companies, and then they were being dismissed. And they're talking to lawyers and different, you know, all these things were going through two courts, one in Florida and one in Illinois. And the politicians had no idea. Well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But they were claiming, the ones that I had spoken to, they didn't know, they didn't even understand it. Like, I was explaining stuff to them that I got from you guys. And that stuff has died down tremendously. And I have not heard one message from somebody who's been served on a Schedule A lawsuit for selling one item on Amazon or eBay or whatever that they were being sued for in months. If you've got one, let me know down below, because I don't want to spread false information. But all of these things, at least domestically, are starting to fold a little bit, where people, you know, the first sale doctrine, you know, we should stand up for ourselves. We should stand up for our rights. And do we really ever own something if we're not allowed to resell it? Now, I'm not talking about counterfeits here. I'm talking about the real deal. And that was my big concern. Can you imagine? I've said this before. If you couldn't resell a Chevrolet using Chevrolet in your newspaper ad because that's trademarked, that's utterly ridiculous. You should be able to use what the item is in your title. And some companies weren't allowing that. They're like, no, you can't use our trade. You can sell our item, you just can't call it by what it is. It's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And that needs to be fully litigated as well. I mean, it'd be like, you know, Mattel saying, no, you can't sell this on eBay because you used Mattel and that's a trademark word and all that. So it's like, give me a break. Registered trademark, right? You can't use that. That's just ridiculous. Then I don't own it. If I buy a Mattel product, I ought to be able to sell a Mattel product with using the word Mattel. And those are the kind of things that, in my opinion, still need to be litigated and just put to bed forever so we don't get any of these stupid lawsuits that this is a wait a minute, I'm looking for Sting. Am I looking for Sting or Nitro? Is this Sting? All right, I found Sting. Who's in the bottom? Just looks similar. 766. And I realize this is like my pet issue, which is fine. I used to be a history teacher and we just study governments around the world. I just have been passionate about this kind of stuff because that is the existential threat, right? There's nothing really going to derail. There's a lot of things that could hurt, you know, massive increases in shipping and massive fees on these platforms, but there's nothing that could kill it outside of the government. And if you're from a European country, you know that there's so many different regulations that are heaped on this stuff that makes it harder and harder and harder. And so I think that's something we should all really, really pay attention to. And even these different, you know, I used to ship stuff to all the European countries and stuff on shopcommons.net, you know, or excuse me, what am I talking about? On commonwealthpicker.com, and, you know, the merch, and Reagan would ship it. And then it got so complicated with filling in all the things and registering it for this tax and that thing and all that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So that is the downside. I think if I can be frank without anybody going crazy here, I don't like the idea of, I do and I don't, of heaping on massive tariffs and stuff like that, because it complicates trade, and I would like to trade to a larger market. However, this administration is also seemingly committed to cutting regulation like crazy. And so there's, you know, a lot of great signs and a lot of negative signs, and who knows how it's all going to work out. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, but you know, it's important that we pay attention, and it's really important that we don't get too partisan on this. And we look at these issues as they affect us and as they affect, you know, constitutionality and private property rights and all those things. When it gets international, it's kind of out of our control, unfortunately. But domestically, we can certainly pay attention to it because our biggest market, almost every reseller in the United States of America's biggest market, is right here in the United States. I gotta go inside and grab something, but check out that sunset. And, you know, I'll lose subscribers by sounding too partisan to one side or the other. And you know what? That's okay, because they're not listening to what I'm saying here. And I'll make one more point about it, and then I'll start picking some stuff. West Coast Choppers, Jesse James Workwear. This one, I was surprised it didn't sell. I just paid $2 or $3 for it. I think I got 3 shirts for $5. Or 2 shirts for $5. I can't remember. Down in Florida, this one sold for $16.95 plus shipping. All right, so here's my evidence for this, where you've got to pay attention, because politicians are no different than the rest of us. You know, none of us are really any better or worse than anybody else. Let's just face it. We all are self-serving to some degree, and we all are generous to some degree. But let's face it, when it comes down to it, if it's me or somebody else, most of us, we're going to pick me or our family or whatever. That's just the way things are. But, you know, all of these things I talked about, they started off as co-sponsored, bipartisan, all of that stuff. And they worked their way down through the partisan, you know, messes and triangles and all that. And then the corporations get their hands on it. And then, you know, the kickbacks start happening and the special interest and all that. That's how things work. Unfortunately, but, you know, that's typically how things, and it's never going to change, not in the way we have our government set up the way we do, which I think is a great way to set it up, just for the record. But I had people sending me, you know, oh, well, it's this politician's fault, and you need to step out and talk to my congressman or my whatever. They're for the small business. What are we talking about? I'm like, they're on the bill. They signed the bill. People have it all. They're just so blinded by partisanship that they just follow whichever partisan way somebody wants to go without actually looking at the foundational issues that are happening. So I also would say this as a little prop for eBay, because I don't know this, because they don't talk, they don't say stuff about this stuff for obvious reasons. But it looks to me like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, the Veros have decreased substantially. I feel like they have fought some of these fights behind the scenes. I could be totally wrong, but I hope they have. And that doesn't mean that they, you know, all the resellers, you know, they got our back or whatever. You know, they have eBay's back. That's what I just said. I expect eBay to have eBay's back, but I expect part of that to be backing up its sellers when egregious things are happening to them, like these crazy Schedule A lawsuits that were happening. And so that's something I think we could all agree on and is in the best interest of all of us. So, at any rate, I'll leave it at that. There will be crazy comments down below, and that's fine. I love it. You know, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And I'm sure I'll learn some things, and I'll probably respond to some things, and I may be right, I may be wrong, but I think the overall trend with some of these things, especially this BOI reporting thing, that was a big win. It may not seem like a big win, but at least instead of the pendulum keep going towards hurting the little guy and putting more burdens on that doesn't hurt some giant megalithic billion-dollar company. They got some nerd in a hat and glasses in a room somewhere filling out this paper. They don't even think about it. But for somebody like me, I got to go on there and do that. Not a big deal. I got to go pay those little $75 fees. I got to go send the same information to 3 different places. And then we've got to have an accountant or a bookkeeper. You got to do your own taxes yourself, which is ridiculously complex. I am getting on a soapbox. I kind of like this. I'll stop. I should have pulled this next item out way sooner. I'd feel better. It is a damn it doll. Stress reliever. And it's not that stressful. I just get worked. I don't know why I get worked up about it. But I do know why I get worked up about it. I think it's important. Now this damn it doll right here sold for $11.96, something like that, plus shipping. And I think, eBay can do a good job too of when these things come out, when these different legislative things and that could affect us come out, is getting us on board. I told those people over there when I talked to them, I'm like, get me to do it. And I literally meant me, Mr. Brown Goes to Washington. Because what happens is all these big companies sit up there and they say, oh, well, all these counterfeits, and we need this legislation for this, and we need this and this and this. And then eBay gets up there and they just look like another big corporation. People don't see you and me and all of us when they think about eBay, but that's eBay's business. Well, their business is providing the platform for us and taking our fees, but we are eBay. It would have been much more effective to get people up there that it would have a negative effect on that look like me and you, as opposed to a suit and tie from the, CEOs or top officials from eBay. And so I think they could, and maybe they have. I've seen actually pictures of, normal eBay sellers going up to Washington for some hearing or something. I think that's something they should definitely do in the future. All right, I'm back out here because I still have not taken this thing into the other shed, which is so dumb, but that's all right. This Yeti right here, microphone. Dave made me buy this for the podcast, or maybe he bought it for me, I don't know. But I never used it, and then he told me to get something else. I'm like, okay. I tried it. I used it once, I think. And so I'm like, I'm selling it. It sold for, I think, just under 40 bucks, 37 maybe, plus shipping. I just realized it's a little ironic I'm wearing the Union Jack on my t-shirt today. It's because it's the British Bulldog. Just saying. I love the British Bulldog. Well, I loved him. Rest in peace. All right, we've got, these are the surprising good Mickey and Minnie ornaments. And now that I'm up here, I don't know which one sold. I probably should have looked at that before I came over. None of these look familiar, but I can't really remember. Maybe it's this one. I'm going to go look. We'll say it's this one. I think they're all selling for roughly the same amount. $24.95. Did I get the right one? Look at that. I did get the right one. $24.95 for that one, plus shipping. Speaking of that sale the other day, that a lot of stuff is sold. We sold another Yahtzee game. And if you remember, the last two Yahtzee games were straight black. And they sold for $19.95 plus shipping. This one is clear. You can see the insides of it, and that one sold. If you ever see the phones where you can see the inside of it, it's good too. That one sold for $24.95 plus shipping. All right, the dogs came in. Turner's out there playing basketball again. Little Vinylmation Wendy. This one surprised me a little bit. Some Vinylmations go for good money. Some are not worth picking up. This one sold for $19.57 plus shipping. I think I got this sweatshirt from Chernock's Connections, one of his Dived It Thread shows. I think that's where I got this one from. It's pretty cool, size large. That's just an awesome vintage shirt. I think probably paid a couple bucks for it. Sold for $17.95 plus shipping. By the way, maybe I don't know the dates, like I said, April 3rd. All day long, literally from like 9 a.m. till midnight. Tons of giveaways, tons of awesome stuff being run over on Dived It Threads. I'm telling you, there's going to be some good stuff. There's going to be some things you can buy and resell over there, plus a bunch of giveaways. I know I'm getting my giveaways together right now. I'm so glad this thing finally sold. This has been here forever. It has not been listed forever, but Paul Philly Flipper was here many, many moons ago, years ago, and had bought this at a sale and some other stuff, and he accidentally left a whole tote, and I stored it away. I was going to give it all back to him one day, and I'm like, dude, I'm tired of storing all this stuff. He's like, what are we doing? I'm not shipping this whole tote. He's like, just sell it. I was like, okay. This is back when he was in Philly. Any rate, these sold. This is a timeout doll, and it took forever, and it sold on 30% off, and it still only sold for $28 plus shipping, which is a bit of a pain in the butt, but you know, all it takes to ship an item like that, as opposed to that, is a bigger box. So we just got to find the right box. Sold something off the top shelf, which means it wasn't this. Which means I have to find something else to put on the top shelf, which is always good. This Dick Tracy lunchbox, it does have a thermos in there. I paid up for this a little bit. I was really hurting that day, and I think I paid $10 for it. Because it had the thermos, and I'm like, yeah, we can get some money. But it didn't sell forever. $21.80 is what it sold for, so we're still making some money. Plus shipping. All right, Turner's got some Commonwealth comedy. What do you got?
What do you call a snowman that works out?
What do you call a snowman that works out? I don't know what.
The abdominal snowman.
The abdominal snowman. Very good. Thank you.
Bye.
Maybe I can get some new folks to subscribe here to make up for all the folks that have probably unsubscribed from me. because they were half listening and only heard some of what I said. I don't know. Any rate, you know, it reminds me of the quote, where two people agree, one is redundant. So I'm perfectly okay with people disagreeing with me, and publicly as well in the comments. And we usually leave them up unless they're kind of hateful. So anyway, let me go pick up one more item. All right, I got to go inside to get one more. But before I do, I just want to say, you know, I'll ask the folks out there who think I treat these things correctly. Punch our Wallen wants out. You want to go out, buddy? All right, go ahead. Go play with Bubba. Go play with Turner. You don't want to get out. You just want to look so I get cold in here. Come on. Well, you're going to have to make your mind up. All right, so this one right here. Whoa. Jeez, oh. I've sold before, and you may remember me selling it before. And I've sold it again. It was returned to me because it just didn't fit them, they said. And we sold it again. This time, sold it for less than the first time. Still making profit after all this shipping and everything because we bought it right. Y'all got to stop fighting. Come on. I think last time I sold it for $200. This time I sold it for $165 plus shipping. Got this one at that sale as well just the other week, and it's already sold. It's a Wilmington. I think I did anyways. Wilmington's Guide to the Bible, Tyndale. I might have got this at a different estate sale. It's got a little bit of a issue there, but nothing big. Sold for $17.95 plus shipping. While you're at it, since I'm probably lose subs on all my channels, you know what? That reminds me of something. Had somebody send me a message the other day saying, I'm unsubscribing because this is what you told this person. And I was like, that's funny because I never said that. You know, when you hear stuff secondhand, third hand, sometimes it's not right, but whatever. It happens. So go check out my Commonwealth Picker channel if you've never done that, and sub over there. Do me a little favor, because whenever I do these videos, there's sub, you know, all these go down and then they kind of creeps back up, and birds of a feather flock together, I suppose. And sometimes you got to touch on touchy things. It gets people sensitive and people disagree. And, you know, there are so many people in this community that I do not see eye to eye on important issues, and I still call them friend. They're awesome, and I can name them, but then you know who I don't agree with. So I'm not going to do that. Anyway, thank y'all for stopping by, and I can't wait to see you next time.